Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see a short biography of Nelson Mandela. Rolihlahla Mandela was born on July 18, 1918 to Nonkopi Nosikene and Kosi Makakaishiva Gandala Mandela, who was the principal counselor to the acting king of the Thembu people, Jogintaba Dalingdibyo. His father died when he was a child, and the young Rolihlahla became a ward of Jongtepa at the great place in Kinisivini. Hearing the elders' stories of his ancestors' valor during the wars of resistance, he dreamt also of making his own contribution to the freedom struggle of his people. He attended primary school in Kunu, where his teacher, Miss Dingane, gave him the name Nelson in accordance with the custom to give all school children Christian names. Nelson Mandela began his studies for a Bachelor of Arts degree at the University College of Fort Hare, but did not complete the degree there as he was expelled for joining in a students' protest. He completed his BA through the University of South Africa and went back to Fort Hare for his graduation in 1943. On his return to the great place at Hikivisini, the king was furious and said if he didn't return to Fort Hare, he would arrange wives for him and his cousin Justice. They ran away to Johannesburg instead, arriving there in 1941. There he worked as a mine security officer, and after meeting Walter Sisulu, an estate agent who introduced him to Lazar Sidesky, he then did his articles through the firms of attorneys Witkin, Edelman, and Sidesky. In 1989, while in the last months of his imprisonment, he obtained an LLB through the University of South Africa. He graduated in absentia at a ceremony in Cape Town. Nelson Mandela, while increasingly politically involved from 1942, only joined the African National Congress in 1944 when he helped form the ANC Youth League. Nelson Mandela rose through the ranks of the CYL, and through its work, the ANC adopted in 1949 a more radical mass-based policy, the Program of Action. In 1952, he was chosen as the National Volunteer-in-Chief of the Defiance Campaign with Malawi Chachalia as his deputy. This campaign of civil disobedience against 6 unjust laws was a joint program between the ANC and the South African Indian Congress. He and 19 others were charged under the Suppression of Communism Act for their part in the campaign and sentenced to 9 months hard labor suspended for 2 years. The 2-year diploma in law on top of his BA allowed Nelson Mandela to practice law, and in August 1952, he and Oliver Tambo established South Africa's first black law firm, Mandela and Tambo. Nelson Mandela was arrested in a countrywide police coup of 156 activists on 5th December 1955, which led to the 1956 treason trial. Men and women of all races found themselves in the dock in the marathon trial that only ended when the last 28 accused, including Mr. Mandela, were acquitted on 29th March 1961. On 21st March 1960, police killed 69 unarmed people in a protest at Sharpeville against the passed laws. This led to the country's first state of emergency on 31st March and the banning of the ANC and the Pan-Africanist Congress on 8th April. Nelson Mandela and his colleagues in the treason trial were among the thousands detained during the state of emergency. Days before the end of the treason trial, Nelson Mandela travelled to Pietermaritzburg to speak at the All in Africa conference, which resolved he should write to Prime Minister Verwoerd requesting a non-racial national convention and to warn that should he not agree there would be a national strike against South Africa becoming a republic. As soon as he and his colleagues were acquitted in the treason trial, Nelson Mandela went underground and began planning a national strike for 29, 30 and 31st March. In the face of a massive mobilization of state security, the strike was called off early. In June 1961, he was asked to lead the armed struggle and help to establish Umkhonto VC, that is, Spear of the Nation. On 11 January 1962, using the adapted name David Motsamai, Nelson Mandela left South Africa secretly. He travelled around Africa and visited England to gain support for the armed struggle. He received military training in Morocco and Ethiopia and returned to South Africa in July 1962. He was arrested in a police roadblock outside Howick on 5th August while returning from KwaZulu-Natal, where he briefed ANC President Chief Albert Luthuli about his trip. He was charged with leaving the country illegally and inciting workers to strike. He was convicted and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, which he began serving in Pretoria local prison. On 27 May 1963, he was transferred to Robben Island and returned to Pretoria on 12 June. Within a month, police raided a secret hideout in Rivonia used by ANC and Communist Party activists, and several of his comrades were arrested. In October 1963, Nelson Mandela joined 9 others on trial for sabotage in what became known as the Rivonia trial, facing the death penalty. His words to the court at the end of his famous speech from the dock on 20th April 1964 became immortalized. He said, "I have fought against white domination and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." On 11th June 1964, Nelson Mandela and 7 others accused Walter Sisulu, Ahmed Kathrada, Govind Beki, Raymond Mabla, Dennis Goldberg, Elias Motsoaledi, and Andrew Langini were convicted and the next day were sentenced to life imprisonment. Dennis Goldberg was sent to Pretoria prison because he was white, while the others went to Robben Island. Nelson Mandela's mother died in 1968 and his eldest son Thembu in 1969. He was not allowed to attend their funerals. On 31st March 1982, Nelson Mandela was transferred to Pollsmoor prison in Cape Town with Sisulu, Lamba and Langeni. Kathrada joined them in October. When he returned to the prison in November 1985 after prostate surgery, Nelson Mandela was held alone. Justice Minister Kobi Kotse had visited him in hospital. Later, Nelson Mandela initiated talks about an ultimate meeting between the apartheid government and the ANC. In 1988, he was treated for tuberculosis and was transferred on 7th December 1988 to a house at Victor Verster Prison near Parle. He was released from its gates on Sunday, 11 February 1990, 9 days after the unbanning of the ANC and the PAC, and nearly 4 months after the release of the remaining Rivonia comrades. Throughout his imprisonment, he had rejected at least 3 conditional offers of reliefs. Nelson Mandela immersed himself into official talks to end white minority rule and in 1991 was elected ANC president to replace his ailing friend Oliver Tambo. In 1993, he and President F.W. de Klerk jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize, and on 27 April 1994, he voted for the first time in his life. On 10th May 1994, he was inaugurated South Africa's first democratically elected president. True to his promise, Nelson Mandela stepped down in 1999 after 1 term as president. He continued to work with the Nelson Mandela's Children's Fund he set up in 1995 and established the Nelson Mandela Foundation and the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. Nelson Mandela never wavered in his devotion to democracy, equality, and learning. Despite terrible provocation, he never answered racism with racism. His life has been an inspiration to all who are oppressed and deprived, to all who are opposed to oppression and deprivation. This is a very short biography of Nelson Mandela. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.